Hello, shall we make it? This is your English edition of a favorite show in Kiswahili, Je Tutafika. Fortunately on your screen, shall we make it is not there. For technical reasons, it will be there next time I have an English language show. And I have an English language show when I have a guest whose command of Kiswahili is not very good. But we will see with the High Commissioner of India here. Hey, habari yako, Balozi?
Habari.
Mzuri?
Mzuri.
Asante sana. You have catch
Salama.
You have come up with it.
Hujambo and things like that.
Asante
I'm used to. Thank you.
Now my guest tonight, as I said earlier to you here, that is His Excellency, the High Commissioner of India and Tanzania, Sandip Arya. Fortunately, Excellency Arya is gracing my show for the second time. If those who are following this show will remember that he was here after his he at the at Channel 10 after he presented his credentials here as High Commissioner of India to Tanzania. As you know, most of you, Tanzania and India enjoy historic relations dating back to the early days of our independence, respective independence here in Tanzania. Of course, India has been independent long, long ago. India, being the world's renowned democracy, has had many leaders who have succeeded each other in accordance with democratic norms. Most Tanzanians, of the old generation especially, remember India. Indian leaders such as Jawaharlal Nehru, Mama Indira Gandhi, who were very close to the founding father of this country, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Mwalimu had tied up together with Indian leaders in non-aligned movement those days of the multipolar world. As you know, in the past we had two superpowers, so therefore we can call it multipolar world. Now that kind of world is gone. We now have a unipolar world. By the way, also, this country, Tanzania, is a rainbow nation because we have a considerable number of Tanzanians of Indian or Asian origin, a factor that solidifies Indo-Tanzania relations. So really tonight, we have a considerable number of issues on the international sphere to start with, given serious issues of concern that have arisen in the intervening period. With most of us following the news on our televisions, we know what's happening. Now, maybe I should start with the High Commissioner. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
How are you doing since your assumption of office here?
No, I'm doing very well. It's a very nice country, very friendly, very positive, very welcoming, and it has been, I think, an excellent experience over the last 2.25 years in this country. And I'm very happy that I am serving in Tanzania, and this is my first stay in an African country.
Oh, you'll be first stay now.
Absolutely, and I think it is very, very fulfilling, very satisfying, and I think very encouraging.
How many years have you concluded so far?
I have done little more than 2.25 years, so it will be 2.5 years soon.
Mm-hmm. This is why you have a little command of Kiswahili.
No, I think it is still very weak, but I did try to learn a little bit, but it I think requires more effort than what you can spare from your day-to-day working. So that is a challenge.
Because you come across many people of different walks of life.
Yeah.
Some talk to you in Kiswahili.
Yes.
And in any case, I just said in the introduction of our show here that we have a considerable number of Tanzanian of Indian of Asian origin.
Yeah, who are all fluent in Swahili.
Yes. Some of them may talk to you in Kiswahili.
That's true.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Now, Ambassador, as you know very well, on the agenda, following, as you know, President Trump, says a superpower, leader of a superpower, is a leader of a superpower. And as you know, in the intervening period, those who have been watching things on television are actually sitting on the edges of their chairs. What's next? Because there is this leader in North Korea. And then this kind of exchange of words, and then we have Iran, kind of thing, nuclear weapons, whatever. Now, how do you look at the international situation, the global sphere right now? How do you look at it? As I've described, President Trump has concluded his 1 year, and it's not. We have seen other presidents in America. We had Obama. People enjoyed Obama and they liked him. The situation was not as nervous as it is now. What's your reading of the situation today, globally speaking?
Yeah, no, the global situation I think is not very easy. There is kind of a flux or a transition in the situation you named. Of course, the situation around DPRK or North Korea, you mentioned also Iran. There is a situation in Syria, situation around, also the migration issues between North American locations and Europe, and also the economy itself, I think, although it has gradually been improving, but in many of those things, there is, as I said, a lot of flux and transition and all, and I think the world is kind of changing and looks rather complex, and I think it's perhaps a challenge for the entire global community to kind of find ways of making things smoother, because ultimately I think all countries, especially as developing countries like India or Tanzania, the most important, I think, priority for all of us is to look at national economic development, national interface with the outside world, for that to play a positive role in our national economic and social development indicators. So we want to be able to focus on that, and we want, of course, the world situation to play a positive role towards that. But these challenges, of course, and terrorism as a whole, I think, as a phenomena, also creates a lot of nervousness and uncertainty for the whole world. So I think that's how it is. There are lots of challenging issues all around, and I think the situation is, I think, not very easy for everybody.
Yes, High Commissioner, as you correctly said, but going by the past, we had a movement here called non-aligned movement in the bipolar world. Now, in the unipolar world, we don't seem to have that kind of unity. Does not seem to exist. As you may not know, our founder president here, Mwalimu Nyerere, once remarked, in his characteristic humor, that once one goes out, maybe taking a walk, and one is faced with a head of chicken, maybe 1,000 pieces, a crowd of chicken surging towards him, one is bound to be scared. He meant, in a sense, that even if we are small, developing countries, but if we are united and speak from time to time as one voice, the bigger ones will listen, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it does have an impact, and it does play a role.
We seem to have this kind of unity globally these days as developing countries.
Yeah.
Is that unity there?
Yeah, no, it's a difficult question in terms of non-aligned movement as an institution exists. It held its last summit meeting in 2016. The next summit meeting is planned.
It was in 2016
Correct.
when it had their last summit meeting.
Correct.
Where was it?
It was in Venezuela.
Oh, Venezuela, yeah.
And the next one should take place next year in Azerbaijan, is the next host of the meeting. So as an institution, it is working, it is functioning. It has also, the agenda is much broader now. I think that the whole global discourse has become little more economical as compared to how it was, say, 30 or 40 years back, when maybe political issues around the world kind of dominated the debate or the discourse in these international organizations. Now I think as some of those issues have maybe dissipated and new challenges have emerged, but I think lots of the developing world now is focused on economic growth, national development, and issues of that kind. and those of course issues are not as political as maybe the debate used to be. Either apartheid at that time, or decolonization was still an important issue, etc. So I think that has had its impact in terms of the nature of dialogue which takes place in international forums, in NAM. And at the same time, I think we have also kind of new groupings which have come up, which are also playing an active role. G20 is one of those organizations. BRICS as a grouping has also come up. So at that time, maybe it was all centered around one or two major organizations like NAM. But I think now, with time, there are, different nature of issues are being dealt in different organizations. So maybe you may have a point in terms of really the prominence of NAM and the influence which it used to exert might have maybe changed from the times of, say, 20, 30,
but
40.
Don't you think we need to revive this kind of grouping?
Yeah.
Because, speaking in unison makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As you probably recall, the other day, the African Union ambassadors who were actually in the UN issued a statement for that. I don't know how to call it. In African culture, to repeat an insult is not comfortable. But black and colored people were described as, I'm apologize, shitholes. And when you describe a fellow human being as a shithole, really, that's so the African Union came up with a statement condemning that. For me, I was very comfortable. It reminded me that at least we need this kind of institutions. This is why I gave you the little joke Mwalimu gave about one walking and then coming across a head of chicken surging towards him. That is actually, he was trying to say, if you are united, and in terms of voice, at least that makes sense, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, I agree. There are lots of things, lots of similarities of situations and challenges faced by the developing world, including Tanzania, India, and all other countries. And I think there is a point in terms of coordinating and collaborating and working more closely on all those common interests among the countries. And I think it is required, and I think India is supportive of that, and we are trying to make efforts also in that direction in terms of our participation, in terms of bilateral relations, in terms of working together in multilateral forums, because India is also kind of taking a lead in many of these forums in terms of bringing countries together and coming up with joint positions on issues and things like that. So we are for it, but of course, as I said, it requires everybody to come together and take more active positions to really be more influential in global platform. That point I take, and I agree that more needs to be done in that area.
Absolutely. And as you probably also followed, which I believe you followed, well, this resolution supported by the United States, to support Israel move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I think there was this vote. Around 128 countries voted against the resolution
in favor, actually.
In favor
of the resolution which was proposed by Egypt was the
to do what? Please remind me.
No, this
Egypt
resolution
proposed that resolution.
Correct.
For what?
It basically, I think, kind of declared that this. Any change of the structure is null and void. Any decision to change the designation of Jerusalem is null and void. I think that's what the resolution said. It will not have an effect, and it should be decided basically through negotiations among the countries. I think that was what I recall was the essence of the UN General Assembly resolution.
And the majority of the people of the member countries supported that kind of view.
India also was one of those 128 countries alongside Tanzania.
My country, was there. It brings us to the core of my, as question to you, that we probably need to be even stronger in terms of unity today than ever before. Don't you think so?
Yeah, that is true. I think that's the countries have to be together. And as I said, India's position on many of these principled issues remains the same, and India remains supportive of its support for the cause of Palestine, as we have stated in the past, and that remains India's position as of now. And we stand on issues based on our own views, our independent thinking, and our principled position sometimes, which have been there for many, many decades. And the same is true on this issue also. But I think it is true that I think there is little more cohesion required in the international community to come together and really try to move forward these issues, these challenges for everybody.
Oh, excellent. So you were saying, in other words, that sort of common front or common platform for developing countries is still valid.
Yeah.
That kind of is valid. Because
Absolutely.
as you have said, as you have seen, as we are seeing,
Yeah.
at serious issues,
Yes.
developing countries find themselves together,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
especially where you have threats
Yeah.
that if you don't do, we will cut aid to you.
Mm.
But still people are
Yeah.
pushing,
Yeah.
responding to your respective consciences.
Yeah. I think this title of World Economic Forum, which is going on in Davos this week,
This is
yesterday
what I
and
actually
today and
was
tomorrow.
also, yes.
And the theme, I think they have chosen it, and I think and lots of very serious minds go behind kind of creating a theme for every year. And this year's theme, I think they have done is creating a shared future in a fractured world. So it summarizes that, it's an acknowledgement that the world is a little bit fractured around different lines, and how to create a shared future for the whole world, and dealing with these kind of divisive challenges or these fractures or fault lines which are appearing on the global platform. I think that is maybe descriptive also of the issues or the situation which is there globally. And this year our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, was the main speaker for the plenary session of this forum.
Yes, I saw him on television. He was there at Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
Excellent. And he spoke there.
Yeah.
What was the genesis of his message?
Yeah. He basically, of course, he was trying to, of course, talk about the global situation as it exists now. And he talked of these fractures and these divisiveness at three levels. One is at the level of the individuals. I think in a globalized, connected world, as individuals, I think with inequalities in the societies, in the world, etc., that is making it not very easy for individuals. Then at the level of countries, within nations, I think there are forces which are kind of maybe moving apart and all that, and trying to bring them together is also a challenging situation. And third, he said at the international level, and in his words, at the international level, the fracture among countries and others is reached a very serious level, a very serious dimension. I think that's what he said. So I think it was an acknowledgement of those situations, and then he said, of course, how India is committed in terms of tackling challenges at the level of the nation, at its participation in the international forum. And also, he talked a little bit of our civilizational, traditional heritage, how it strengthens an individual to deal with complex situations, because it's an old civilization, at least 5,000 or maybe much more than that years old, of inherited values and customs and everything else, which I think play a role in an individual's life for an Indian. So I think he was talking of all of those, how they contribute to that, and he of course suggested a little bit on how it is a meeting of CEOs and really the best from the global arena in the field of business. And he was trying to link it up in terms of how they can play a role in terms of being conscious of these issues, in terms of really overcoming this divisiveness. There are challenges of inequities, there are challenges of investments, there are challenges of development in developing countries and all, and how they could play a role. So I think that was the theme of his message, and he of course spoke a little more of what is going on in India now, and how that is playing a role, and I think he wanted a partnership in terms of taking those issues forward. So that was the main theme, but he talked of course a couple of specific challenges, and that was the theme of his speech at the main plenary of the opening session of this World Economic Forum in Davos the day before yesterday, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting forum taking place, absolutely interesting. But look, in the past we had calls for a new international economic order. Yeah. Well, the bottom line here is the developing countries, which are basically the majority in terms of numerical lineage strength, you had a situation where these countries are the primary producers of raw materials. That's globally needed raw materials, but they are not the ones who are fixing the prices. Yeah. So they are sold off cheap, and they resold back dear.
Yeah.
And well, this was a misnomer, and most of countries in the developed countries were calling for a new international economic order. Again, this call seems to have gone down. How do you read the global situation economically?
Yeah, I think there are, of course, World Trade Organization in Geneva. It was created as a body which was, of course, little more focused on trade issues, but that was supposed to play a role in regulating, having a law-based order for international trade, in terms of laying the basics, in terms of how countries, it explained what can be done, what can be challenged. It has a dispute resolution mechanism and all. So that is one. Second, obviously, is there are other forums like World Bank and IMF which also play a role in global economy in terms of setting rules for this. But ultimately, I think when it comes to national resources, there are some realities are there. Of course, minerals, for example, either in India or in Tanzania, etc., they of course are kind of national resources. But at the same time, there is a need for financing, need for technology, and need for entrepreneurship, which is required to convert them into wealth for everybody actually. And what model, what system is developed to deal with those things, and which, for example, can be laws for mining, laws for investments, laws for dealing with those, laws for trading in those minerals, for example. All those, I think, things are really have to be done in a very balanced manner, so that the interests of the country, interests of the people, and also interests of the businesses, because businesses will always look at the economic feasibility of a model. So all of them, what is the best mix for them is really an issue which kind of remains something which is to be addressed. Those who have done it well have been able to use it for really generating wealth for the country, for prosperity of the country. And of course, if those systems have not been laid, then it has not maybe generated the same kinds of benefits for the country, sometimes because of maybe the systems, regulations, laws, etc., kind of did not meet those requirements of the countries which own the minerals. So I think it's a little bit of a tricky business, and I think I agree that they should really create fair returns for the countries owning them.
Yeah, but you probably know that this country, my country, Tanzania, is mineral rich. Well, I don't want to exaggerate, but we are mineral rich here. And do you, from your frank point of view, how do you think we should go about in making sure that we don't end up saying we are minerally rich when actually, because the land is yours, the minerals are yours, and then you are given interest.
Yeah.
I think this is the right word, interest. I don't know. Yeah, this is the interest. You are given an interest, not equitable or equitable shares. No.
Yeah.
Why don't we demand equitable shares with those who are coming to invest?
Yeah.
As you probably something You remember very well the other day, something very commendable took place on the part of our president here. We never knew, most of our citizens never knew that shiploads of minerals were actually leaving the country, being taken away from the country. In ordinary eyes, one would think it's just sheer sand, but it was not sheer sand, it was minerals.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the one hand. On the other, as I've said, we have these minerals. What do you think should be a logical thing for a country like mine to do so that at least you end up with equitable shares? Investment, yes, but what is going to be your shares as the owner of those minerals? Because the land is yours, the minerals are yours. Why can't you demand for equity shares?
Yeah. No, I think this is, of course, every country lays down its laws and regulations and enforcement of those laws and regulations at its level. And based on, of course, again, as I said, I think it's a matter of balancing these facts also, that what is the best model for utilization of those resources. Because I think so, I do not know. Of course, President has been, thankfully, President of Tanzania, and the government and people of Tanzania, it's, I think, an issue to be addressed there, and Parliament has been involved and everybody else. But I think what in India also we have from time to time moved on in terms of our own national laws and national regulations, and there have been changes in those regulations to meet the needs of the present day. So ultimately, I think you have to, as I said, you have the resources, but of course those resources, to convert them into wealth, requires sometimes investment, sometimes technology, and sometimes the entrepreneurial skill to translate them into goods which have value and which have the best value for the market. So I think so a country does develop those laws and ensures mechanisms to enforce those laws to create the best possible returns, but at the same time, of course, one has to ensure that it is in a way in which it attracts people who can also convert them into the wealth, which is, I think, the ultimate objective of mining or of investments into those sectors. So I think a lot is going on in Tanzania. You perhaps know it much better than I do, but I think Tanzania is trying to maybe redefine some of those things to believe something which is more fair from the national perspective, and I think those things every country does for itself, and we have also, as I said, done it for India.
Fair enough. Before we break, in a minute, because you are celebrating your National Day, Excellency, India's you have your Republic Day on the 69th year of your Republic Day.
Yeah.
Hey, that's considerable, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Maybe after the break we can come back and talk about your experiences as a nation over the last 69 years, albeit briefly, but then we can go to Indo-Tanzania relations.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a little break.
Asante sana.
Ni sisi, ni mimi na wewe. Kwa pamoja tunaijenga Tanzania yetu kuwa kisiwa cha amani, utulivu na maajabu, kwa misingi ya umoja wetu, mshikamano na upendo, huku tukikuza uchumi wa nchi yetu na kuboresha namna ya kukufikia popote ulipo na kuipaza sauti yako. Hakika tunajivunia msingi wa ubora wa hali ya juu, kujituma katika utendaji kazi bila kujali ugumu, mazingira, umbali wala ukubwa wa tukio. Kila siku, masaa 24 katika siku 7 za juma. Ungana na Channel 10
popote pale ulipo,
uwe wa kwanza kujua mambo mbalimbali yanayojiri ulimwenguni. Ni wakati wako sasa kuijenga Tanzania mpya. Kwa pamoja tunaunganisha mikono yetu kulijenga taifa letu. Hima tujenge sura ya pekee. Ni wewe, ni sisi. Channel 10, kilicho bora kabisa.
High Commissioner, before the break, I enticed that your country is marking its 69th year since it became a republic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When this show will be broadcast, which is weekend, when this show is taking place, it's a Sunday, and you will have marked already by your your embassy would have organized already celebrated by inviting people to come over to the cocktail. You're celebrating. What words would you have? What are your impressions of your country over the last 6 and 9 years?
I think it's an important occasion to little bit think about the past, where the country started from, as in at the time of independence in 1947, and 3 years later when we adopted our constitution, and that day is called the Republic Day, when it came into effect for the country. And so 70 years is, I think, a longish journey in terms of looking at what all has gone through and where we stand today and where we look ahead in the future. So I think overall it's a matter of a lot of satisfaction for us to start from a very, very difficult situation to emerge as a flourishing democracy, the biggest democracy in the world, in terms of maintaining those institutions, in terms of lifting up the levels of governance to the satisfaction of the people, lifting up the economic growth in the country, taking the development of the common people also to a level where it is, I think, it is much better, but there is still a way to go in the future. And also in terms of maintaining a harmonious society in the country and set a foundation for future growth. Our Prime Minister some months back had given a vision for what he described as New India by 2022, and he said that we have a 5-year time frame, and when we will have 75th anniversary of India's independence, at that stage we should be proud of having a secure, prosperous and a strong country, a country which offers equal opportunity to all its people, a country which deploys science and technology for the benefit of its people. And I think a lot of activities going on at all those levels in the country, and I think it is I think a time of general celebration and happiness of where we have reached from where we started, and also plan a little bit for the future in terms of New India.
Excellent. How have you gone evolving national unity, Indian national unity? Because you see sometimes some of us in developing countries, in African countries, have lack this foundation.
Yeah.
This is an important foundation,
yeah.
National unity.
Yeah.
You see, unity in diversity.
Yeah.
That you are different, you are one, you are diverse in the sense that maybe ethnically you are this and this, but you are one people.
Yeah.
And in multi-party democracy, for example,
yeah.
Some of us in Africa do blunders.
Yeah.
But some of us in Tanzania have succeeded. We are talking of 5 presidents since this country was founded. And this is not easy for most African countries. Some of the leaders in African countries want to stick even at the quoted term of office by the Constitution.
Yeah.
How have you succeeded to evolve national unity in India?
I think you are right. Sometimes the value of this is not maybe appreciated as much by everybody, but I think the way India has managed...
You are a republic, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The biggest...
And between the two, your president and the prime minister, who wields executive powers?
No, the Prime Minister of India wields the executive powers, but of course President is the head of the state, and therefore it requires his concurrence to various decisions and various new laws and things like that. But I think one of the biggest thing for us have been a very, very strong, very detailed and very, I think, well thought through Constitution of India. And 26th of January is the day on which this Constitution came into effect, and that is what we call Republic Day.
It's the day the Constitution of India came into place.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think the foundation which the Constitution laid has been a big thing for the country, because it has really guided the country all through. There are multiple issues here. One is between the center and the states, because as you know, India has 29 states, and each of these states have their own governments, and some of these governments may be from the opposition party to the one which is ruling in the center. So division of center and state, those powers was done in the Constitution, and I think it has worked very well. Second is, of course, between the legislative, executive and the judiciary. Those distribution of powers between them really was done in a manner and that they serve kind of in that sense are independent of each other, and I think they play a positive role in terms of maintaining cohesion, maintaining a balance, and ensuring that it does not swing one way or the other. Then it provided also for a very strong and independent bureaucracy and the civil services or the public servant system in India, which ensured, in terms of protecting their rights, etc., that they could take positions and they could ensure a continuity in terms of national policies and national evolution. So I think those are some of the basic elements of the constitution which have really guided the country, and I think have played a very positive role for the country to maintain a harmonious evolution over a period of time. And of course, because it is a democratic system, and ultimately our constitution also starts, we the people of India, because the constitution was given by the people of India to themselves. I mean, that's the spirit in which it operates. So the check at the level of the people in elections from time to time, at the level of the states and at the level of the central government, I think those elections of course make everybody responsible to the people, and there has been kind of transition of power from one party to another, etc., and that ensures that governments are always responsible, always conscious of the people and their good life and their aspirations, which I think has served the country very well, and I think we are happy about that achievement for us.
Some of us are very proud of you in the sense that in terms of gender, we had the lady Prime Minister of India, Madam Indira Gandhi. As you actually, I can't compare you because culturally you are different. We can compare you with Britain because culturally you are different.
Yeah.
And the British from time to time, one way or another, they have a lady leader. Yeah. You have been having this kind of, which is very good in terms of gender balance of your country, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had also a lady president. We had a lady prime minister.
Yeah, really? Okay.
And there are a fair number of people in the parliament. And there is, of course, a bill which is resting with our parliament to reserve 1/3 of the seats for women. There are lady ambassadors. I think about 15% of our ambassadors globally are ladies. And I think there is a good participation by them, but I'm sure there is more to do in that area. And I think ensuring that the entire population participates in the economic development of the country, I think adds greater value for every country.
Exactly. Now, I think we should now move to bilateral relations that we have the two countries do have. We have had, as I said at the introduction of my show, we have had a very close relationship between India and Tanzania in the days of the founder president of this country. And there is this, as I said before, we are a rainbow nation here. Yeah. We have Tanzanians of Asian origin, Indian origin, and they are substantial. Actually, in the past, we had even a cabinet minister, the late Amir Jamal. Yeah. He was a minister, and this shows how we have evolved in national unity and diversity. Yeah. Now, bilaterally, since you came here, what was on your agenda in terms of economic support, in terms of cooperation? Yeah. High Commissioner.
I think I would describe it, the approach in terms of 4 big pillars of relationship between India and Tanzania. One is the level of political understanding and political exchanges. And second, I will describe as economic and business ties between the two countries. Third, I see as partnership for development in Tanzania. And fourth is the contacts at the level of the people. And I thought that in each of these 4 areas we need to have a plan and move forward. We were very happy when our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, visited Tanzania. That was his first visit to mainland Africa. And it was nice, really? Absolutely. And Tanzania was covered in his first visit. Also associated that in Delhi, Tanzania attracts greater attention and priority, I think, within the continent. So which was a good sign. At that time, we took some decisions. We have been taking them forward. Some months back, we had Mr. Mwijage, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment. He went to India. He met his counterpart. He held a trade and investment forum. And of course we have had similar exchanges at various levels between the two countries. So political exchanges, I think, have been developing to a lot of satisfaction for us. Same is true of economic and business relations, which I think the trade figures speak for themselves. According to the TRA data, India is the largest trading partner for Tanzania. We are by far the largest importer of goods from Tanzania.
Like what?
22% of Tanzanian goods go to India.
Which are the goods, please?
Gold is one of them. I mean,
Gold
we are
is
a
one
big
of them.
buyer of gold. We are a big consumer globally also of gold. So plus I think there are agricultural products like cashew nut, like pulses, and the third category,
Cashew nuts?
pulses or I think you call it dingo or something.
Okay.
And cloves and a little bit of some oilseed products also. And the third category is maybe wood and timber products also. So those are, I think, the main products which are going to India. About $1 billion of Tanzania's exports are to India every year. And we, of
So
course,
when you look at Tanzania's potential agriculturally,
yeah,
and if we were to think of maybe setting up a factory here, convincing some Indian business people to come and say, set up a factory here,
yeah.
what kind of factory would you think of?
No, I think.
For example, we are,
Yeah.
we produce cotton here,
Yeah.
and of course we have sisal,
Yeah.
and many other things. But
Yeah.
what do you think is our potential in terms of industry here?
Yeah, no, I think you are right. Basically, one is obviously items in which there can be value addition to the items, and you named cotton. There is, of course, food processing of various kinds. It can be fruit juices. It can be converting food into more value-added products for export. Then, of course, it is also in terms of leather is a area of huge potential, because with the number of animals that are there and the ability to contribute is in the leather sector, because leather is also an important export for India to many of the developed world countries and all. So those items for which raw material is available in Tanzania, of course, are items of automatic interest. But again, then there are items like cement, like steel, which are required for a country which wants to build itself. So I think those industries, something has to be done. And in India, after we became independent, I think we put a lot of thrust on some of these heavy industries, which we believe for any country to grow and to become a good, strong economy needs to have the supply of these items, particularly steel, which is an important ingredient. And we are happy that there are a couple of Indian steel plants which are working, and I think they are looking at also expansion in the future. So I think, and of course services sector are playing a greater role these days, things like information technology, things like other services, for them they are an important source of employment and wealth generation for the country. So I think in all of those primary commodities which one says which are related to agriculture and related to maybe minerals, second of course is the manufacturing sector, and third is the service sector. I think all of them have to contribute to the development of the economy.
Well, that could be a very interesting point. So what you're saying basically that there is room for Indian participation in our industrial development here.
Yes.
And the potentials you see are basically on agricultural products, as you have mentioned them.
Yeah.
And what could be other areas that you think we can cooperate between India and Tanzania?
So people have projects in other areas also. There are plans, for example, in the field of pharmaceuticals, which the government of Tanzania has also highlighted that is an area where we should try to attract investment. So there are a couple of Indian companies also negotiating and engaging, and if it reaches conclusion, then there could be production, which is an area of great strength for India because we are a major exporter of pharmaceuticals globally. So that is one. Then there are, of course, around steel itself, as I said, you will require a lot of kind of consumption. Then of course areas can be many. It is a matter of committed efforts in that area, either in the field of automobiles, in the field of things like tractors, in the field of even power generation.
You have just mentioned something very important, because basically, as you probably already know, we're an agricultural country. Basically, we're a rural country. About 80% of our population live in rural areas, and their preoccupation is tilling the land.
Yeah.
So the most urgent thing that our people in the village, in the countryside, in the rural areas need would be the tractors.
Yeah.
How can you contribute to this?
Yeah.
Because you see, if we improve here,
Yeah.
the mechanics of agriculture for our people,
Yeah.
then we'll have gone a very long way
Absolutely.
to development itself.
Yeah, yeah. No, farm mechanization, I think, can be an important contributor to the development of agriculture in Tanzania. At some stage, I think, as part of government-to-government arrangements, and this was, I think, in 2011, 2012, 2013, over those 3 years or so, about 1,900 or 1,850 or so tractors were supplied from India, apart from farm implements under a government-to-government arrangement. And I think these were farm tractors, and I think what I have heard from various people is it played, I think, a very positive and useful role. So it happens at both levels. One is at the level of businesses and at the level of companies, private companies. So they are, of course, selling tractors, and there are Indian tractors which are being supplied through the private business channel. But at some stage, if further ideas emerge as to if it can be done as a government-to-government arrangement, I think we will be willing and open to discuss it and come up with a solution.
One of the most silent things that people normally have a very high regard in your country is in medical sciences.
Yeah.
See, most people here, when the situation gets worse, they think the first country they think of is to go to India for treatment.
Yeah.
And I've been to your country, and I've seen two things that struck me most, really, is the hospitality industries.
Yeah.
Your hospitality industry vis-a-vis your hotels.
Yeah.
The way they are. I mean, the culture of your people in receiving non-Indians, I mean, non-foreigners or people coming to your country, not only foreigners, well, sort of people even who are guests to given hotels in India, is excellent.
Yeah.
And also the hospitals.
Yeah.
I saw some of the hospitals, the way patients are treated, and they report, sick. I mean, as they visit hospitals for treatment, and it's just good.
Yeah.
How can you? These things cannot, of course, be exported.
Yeah.
But how do you? Is it in your plan?
Yeah.
To support Tanzania, train its people, especially its youth in medical sciences.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think the strength of Indian healthcare treatment is truly the quality of doctors, because it's an area which is almost entirely dependent on them. Equipment play a supportive role, but really a good doctor or an average doctor really can make a huge difference as to how those equipment are deployed and what services are delivered. And I think we are happy at what we have been able to achieve. What we have done, and I think I was going to this third pillar of development partnership or partnership for development between India and Tanzania. I think healthcare, we are attaching greater priority to healthcare now. I think my belief is in this financial year, I think at least 30 to 40 Tanzanian doctors from Muhimbili Hospital, from KCMC, from Bugando Medical Center have traveled to India already for training programs which are fully sponsored by Government of India. And these are sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks courses. Some of them for paramedics and nurses also we are trying to do, because doctor is important, but also I think at the same time, the people who service the people are also required. So I think that is happening, and I think next year in 2018 will also, I think we will keep it at those numbers and maybe try to expand them. The second thing which is happening is a little bit of collaboration between several hospitals, many of them private from India, who come and do special camps at various hospitals, including at Muhimbili. We heard of this kidney surgery which was done, was first ever kidney transplant which happened 2-3 months back, was an initiative of that collaboration between private hospitals in India with the hospitals in Tanzania to deliver those services. And when you do it as a team, there are 2-3 Indian doctors together with 2 or 3 Tanzanian doctors and conduct an operation, the skills and everything else get transferred, and at some stage it leads to own capacities. So I think that, but healthcare is one part of our wider development partnership between the two countries. And I think we are working on several projects in that area. And water supply is something which is really, it was so pleasing for me 6 months back when we saw this Upper Rubu project. It is a $100 million project financed by the Exim Bank of India for bringing water from Rubu River, about 50 kilometers from Dar es Salaam, to the residents.
High Commissioner Balozi, you have just touched one of my sensitive nerve centers. We have a problem of water, edible water that is safe also in the villages. Most of our people know it only too well. If I was asked what could be urgent for us in terms of development, I would say making water, edible water available to the people.
I know.
Because most of our women wake up they leave very, very early, then come back very late to fetch water, and that water is not good.
I think our partnership is.
How can you support us along these lines?
I think our partnership is really developing very well, to immense satisfaction of me individually, and I think to Government of India in general. I mentioned this $100 million project, which included everything, starting from pumping of the water from the river, taking it, transmitting it to a treatment plant, cleaning the water, making it drinkable, the Ruvu River water, and then transmitting it to the center, to Kibamba, Kimara localities on the outskirts of Dar es Salaam. And then we build reservoirs where water is stored. And then the extension part is currently going on for distribution of that water. It is distributed in those localities. We think that about 700,000 people are already receiving that water, which was
700,000 people.
Absolutely.
700,000 people.
And
close to 1 million people.
Absolutely. And when the distribution is completed, it will be about 1.2 million people in Dar es Salaam will be getting water from a river on their taps in their homes. So this is something which we have already accomplished. And I think this second project is also very important in the field of water, which is about a $250 million project for water supply to the city of Tabora.
That's my town, actually.
Oh.
Asante Sara.
Thank you very much. So this project construction started about 6 months back. And in about 2.5 years' time, you will have water running through taps in Tabora across the city.
That will be great for me.
Absolutely.
I'll frequent visiting my village from time to time.
You'll see the results, and we were happy that President Magufuli personally launched the construction of this water supply project in Tabora city. And Nzega and Igunga will be covered, and about 80 other villages on the way will be covered. And I think this is going to be another big achievement.
I hope. Do you know Urambo?
No, not really.
It's just the small towns that you just mentioned. There's another one called Urambo next to, within the same Tabora region.
I have known Bukini, because we passed by Bukini. But I think we are also discussing 2 more future projects in the field of water. And I think, as I see, next 3, 4, 5 years, India perhaps will be the biggest partner in the field of water for Tanzania.
Excellent. Now, time is not exactly on our side, but I've really immensely enjoyed our talk today. But look, the other day, there was a couple of years ago, there was the good news that your country will support the setting up of a super Apollo Dar es Salaam hospital to save the costs of many Tanzanians who have to travel all the way to your country to seek treatment. How is this project?
I think the discussions have been, because the exact modalities of collaboration are important, and it was supposed to be a 50-50 joint venture between
50%,
Apollo.
50%.
Yeah, 50% was Apollo Hospital and 50% was a partner from Tanzania. It's from the government of Tanzania. So I think their discussions have taken really longer than what I expected, and I think they are still finalizing some of those details. And of course, there are multiple ways in which it can be done, and I think they have to agree on the model which will work well for the government of Tanzania and work well for Apollo. And I would really like to see it succeed, but we have not really concluded the exact model of cooperation between them.
The area that is concluded, the better, because as you know, Tanzanian, most people have high regard for Indian medical sciences in terms of treatment of people. So if we'll have that level of hospital in Dar es Salaam, that will really be very, very very, very appropriate and good for us.
I agree.
Now, High Commissioner, I really wish we could have stayed more, because there are things, very interesting things that I think we could have spoken about.
Yeah.
But for now, I think it's time to thank you most sincerely, High Commissioner, for accepting to come to the interview. And maybe you have, since I noted that you have you have caught up with the Kiswahili, maybe you'd like to say something in Kiswahili to our viewers of this show.
Thank you very much, asante. Nawatakia kheri wa Tanzania chini ya uongozi wa Rais Magufuli.
Unatutakia heri wa Tanzania chini ya uongozi wa Rais Magufuli. Asante bwana.
Asante sana ndugu Makwaya.
Nakushukuru sana ndugu Ari. Nakufurahia sana.
Asante.
Kwa mwendo huu balozi tutafika.
Asante sana.